Ophelia's sinister secrets, uncover the terrifying truth behind the cursed haunting of 17 years. The wind howled through the empty street, carrying a ghostly whisper that sent chills down Emma Thompson's spine. She pulled her cardigan tighter around her shoulders as she recalled the eerie shadows creeping past her windows. At 36, she was a single mother drowning in grief and exhaustion, grappling each night with memories of her late husband. Working long shifts as a nurse in the understaffed Maplewood Hospital, she returned to the cold, soundless home where the laughter of her two children, Jake and Lily, often echoed but now felt like the burdening silence of absence. The dim overhead lights in her living room flickered, and the walls seemed to lean in closer, holding her in their embrace of despair. Panic lurked just beneath the surface of her mind. Just stress, she told herself, pushing the thoughts away. Then Mr. Grayson moved in next door. His unsettling charm wielded a charisma that made the neighborhood stiffen with judgment. It soon stirred whispers of a girl named Ophelia, vanished 17 years ago, her name looming like a dark cloud over Maplewood. Jake's youthful curiosity sparked endless questions. Lily's innocent laughter unwittingly mirrored the haunting tales whispered among neighbors. They stumbled upon old photographs, cryptic messages engraved in the hollow of tree bark, hints at the ties Mr. Grayson might hold to Ophelia's mysterious fate. The chatter among the kids grew ominous. They claimed to hear Ophelia's name carried in the wind, a name that turned Emma's stomach. She began to notice that every flicker of her lights coincided with Mr. Grayson's movements. Was it coincidence or a sinister connection? As her misplaced instinct for safety turned into palpable fear, she felt the tendrils of rigidity creep into her resolve. She needed to protect her children, especially as rumors spread like wildfire, dismissing Mr. Grayson as merely eccentric. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. One stormy night, dark clouds rolled across the sky, sending torrents of rain splattering against her windows. Emma awoke abruptly, jolted by a cacophony of strange sounds. A mix of laughter and sharp cries sliced through the silence of her home, a jarring melody that transformed her heart's rhythm into a pounding drum. She rushed down the hall, dread clawing at her throat, panic surging as she pushed open Jake and Lily's bedroom door. Empty. Her breath caught. Her children, where were they? Frantic memories of earlier that evening pulsed through her mind, visions of them playing outside, drawn toward the siren call of Mr. Grayson's home. The unsettling urge to flee gripped her, yet curiosity ignited urgency. Rain cascaded against the windows, lightning illuminating fleeting shadows as she sprinted into the storm. Each echoing step drew her closer to Grayson's door, wider than the others, creaking open as if inviting her in. The shadows lurked, scuttling along the doorframe with malicious intent. With a heartbeat loud enough to drown out the storm, she grasped the door handle. As she prepared to confront what resided within, the lights flickered one last time, revealing the silhouette of Mr. Grayson. A frigid whisper curled around her spine. You're too late, Emma. There already here the echoes of 15 years haunted her steps, threading the fibers of truth and terror, a truth that now threatened to devour her family whole. The door swung open wider at Grayson's urging, the darkness inside swallowing Emma whole. She hesitated, her instincts screaming for her to turn back, to flee from the flickering shadows that danced menacingly. The air felt heavy, thick with something that twisted her stomach in fear. She stepped over the threshold, the ancient floorboards creaking beneath her weight as if warning her against the intrusion. Inside, the atmosphere was suffocating. The faint light from a single, beleaguered lamp cast long shadows that seemed to twist and curl like fingers reaching for her. Jake. Lily. Her voice trembled, barely rising above the storm as it crashed around her. The oppressive silence that followed felt like a taunt, echoing her desperation. As she ventured deeper, a strange sound broke through the thick air, a child's giggle, familiar yet wreathed in an unfamiliar edge. Emma's heart raced faster, each beat a frantic reminder of how much she had to lose. She moved cautiously, her eyes darting toward the walls, which seemed to close in around her. Old photographs hung askew, faces she didn't recognize seeming to watch her with judgment. Then, she spotted a flicker of movement. Her breath caught in her throat as she rounded the corner, peering into the dimly lit den. In the far corner, illuminated by the dying lamp's glow, were two small figures huddled together. Jake and Lily, their backs turned to her, were whispering conspiratorially. Relief flooded her momentarily, but it was quickly chased away by the hair on her arms standing at attention. Something felt terribly wrong. "Kids!" she called, her voice barely more than a whisper now. They turned around slowly, their faces shadowed but smiling eerily. "Mommy! Come see!" Jake beckoned, his voice eerily cheerful amidst the chaos. Their eyes shone with an unnatural brightness, as if reflecting more than the dim light that flickered. Emma stepped closer, apprehension pooling in her gut. "What are you doing here?" "We need to go home," she said, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Now." "But Ophelia is here!" Lily exclaimed, her eyes wide with innocent wonder. "She's playing with us." Ophelia? The name sent a chilling shudder through Emma. She had hoped her children's fascination with the tragic tale would dissipate, but instead, it seemed to have drawn them closer to the very thing she feared most. "Where is she?" Her voice cracked. With that, Jake pointed toward a darkened corner that remained beyond the lamp's glow. "Over there, she wants to meet you." Emma turned slowly, dread pooling heavily in her chest. A figure slight and pale stood just beyond the border of darkness, its features obscured, yet she sensed a warmth, a lure that felt impossible to resist. The dim silhouette seemed to flicker like a flame in the gusty storm outside, almost inviting. "Come meet her, Mommy." They chimed in harmoniously, their laughter ringing like a bell that echoed horribly in the confined space. Before she could process what was happening, the temperature dropped drastically. Emma's breath turned to vapor. The figure stepped closer, revealing a hollow face with sunken eyes, a smile that twisted too wide. She felt the world around her blur, the shadows danced chaotically, and for a moment, she lost her sense of reality. "Get away from her!" Emma screamed, instinct compelling her to protect her children from whatever this apparition had in mind. But the children remained still, entranced, unwilling to listen. The figure's lips moved, forming words she couldn't hear over the howling wind and crashing rain. Suddenly the laughter rang out again, sharper now, transforming into a mournful wail that sliced through the silence, shaking the very foundation of her sanity. Instinctively, Emma grabbed for Jake and Lily, her hands trembling with urgency, but when she touched them, they felt cold, like ice, and terror gripped her heart. "What have you done?" she gasped, realizing in horror that she was losing them as the shadows pressed in. Emma's vision darkened, the world tilting into an abyss. She was just about to succumb to that void when a piercing scream cut through the threatening haze, this one not from her children, but from somewhere far beyond the walls of the house, despairing and profane. With a violent jolt, Emma stumbled back, forcing herself to focus. The ghostly whisper returned, echoing back to her, "You're too late." As the truth sank deep into her bones, she understood, she had to escape this nightmare before it pulled her under completely. But with the children ensnared, could she wrench them away from the clutches of a fate entwined with Ophelia's dark legacy? The storm raged on, but Emma's battle was just beginning. She had no idea how much time she had left before the truth would claim her, too. Unseen forces tightened their grip. What would she find if she dared to unravel the deadly threads woven through her family's history? She took a shaky breath, steeling herself for the harrowing choices ahead. The atmosphere thickened like a choking fog as Emma's heart thundered against her ribs. The flickering lamp struggled to stave off the darkness, creating a perverse ballet of shadows. She glanced back at Jake and Lily, their eyes reflecting a vacant allure, drawing both despair and dread deep into her chest. The warmth of momentary reunion dissipated as the hollow smile of Ophelia flickered and swayed like the shadows themselves. "Jake, Lily, please. We need to leave this place." Emma's voice barked in desperation, breaking through the cacophony of the storm and the wailing sounds of the house, each shriek growing louder as if urging her to succumb to despair, but the children remained lost in their trance, their giggles morphing into tortured cries as Ophelia's form wavered, enchanting them closer. Emma's hand trembled as she reached toward them, grappling with icy fingers that constricted around her heart. "Mommy, Ophelia's our friend," Lily murmured, the innocence of her words twisted by an edge of something sinister. Emma's breath turned shallow. "This isn't real. She's not your friend." With a surge of courage, she lunged forward, yanking Jake back, their bodies colliding as the temperature plunged even further. But the moment she wrapped her arms around them, a searing pain shot through her, twisting like a knife. The children flinched, their eyes welling with tears that didn't belong to them, but to the sorrowful spirit looming behind them. "Don't take them!" Emma screamed, now fully aware of the battle she faced. The realization washed over her like a wave of ice, heavy and suffocating. "You've taken so much already." The figure drifted closer, the child's laughter was replaced by a haunting melody, each note laced with desperation. With her free hand, Emma fumbled behind her for anything that could sever the connection, a lantern, a knife. The shadows around her pulsated violently as if the very walls sought to consume her. In a sudden burst, the lamp flickered to life, revealing the grotesque face of Ophelia in stark detail. Her solid presence surged with dark energy, casting out a palpable dread. Each feature was marred with anguish, emanating a predatory aura. "You can't keep me from my children." The voice resonated low, reverberating in the core of Emma's being. She stumbled back, clutching her own head as memories flooded her, whispers of harsh truths her parents had brushed aside, hints of a curse twisting through generations. Ophelia wasn't merely haunting them, she was a desperate echo of what had been taken, a grim tale woven tightly into the fabric of her family's legacy. "What do you want?" Emma shouted, forcing herself to meet the gazes of her children, trying to break through the fog of their enchantment. "I'll do anything to save them. Bring them home." Ophelia whispered, her form shifting, sucking the light from the room into a gaping maw of despair. "But first, you must give something in return." Sinking dread filled Emma. What would she have to sacrifice? A piece of her soul? A memory? The blinding fear and overwhelming love for her children struck her like a cold shard of ice. "Mommy!" Jake cried, breaking through his stupor for a fleeting moment, eyes wide with terror. That glimpse of clarity ignited a spark in Emma's heart. "I want to let her take you. Hold on." She surged forward, the grip of her unseen chains fading as she pushed deeper into the abyss of the room. The shadows lashed out, snapping at her heels, but she dared not look back. She knew she must confront the monster at the heart of the house, to unravel the dark legacy that had imprisoned them all. With one last glance at her beloved children, their bewildered faces filling her with both dread and determination, she plunged toward the dark corner where the heart of Ophelia's curse throbbed within the shadows. What terrible truth awaited her there? And what sacrifice would it demand to save her children from the lingering grip of despair? Emma's heart raced as darkness surged forward, swallowing her whole. Was there any escape left? The darkness enveloped Emma, its cold fingers wrapping around her throat like a vice. She stumbled deeper into the void, her senses overwhelmed by an oppressive weight, each breath a struggle against despair. Flickers of light danced on the edges of her sight, teasing a reality that felt both surreal and frighteningly intimate. As she moved through the dimness, whispers ignited in her ears, converging into a living pulse. Emma remember. Each utterance pricked her mind, threatening to unearth memories she had buried deep, memories still festering like open wounds. She pressed her palms against her ears, straining against the palpable dread clawing at her. No. She couldn't give in. Not now. Not ever. "Mommy!" The sound of Jake's voice sliced through her resolve, fragile and scared, just beyond the reach of the shadows. Her heart cracked wide open. "Jake!" she shouted, panic stirring within her. "Where are you?" In response, a sliver of light emerged, illuminating a path towards a grotesque altar nestled in the shadows. It was crude, a twisted fabrication of driftwood and decay, and on it rested an assortment of relics, child's toys, faded photographs, and hair clippings. Each item carried the weight of sorrow, each a remnant of lives lost to the void of despair that Ophelia had woven around them. Emma took a step closer, the air heavy with the scent of damp earth and betrayal. A photograph caught her eye, a little girl in a yellow dress holding a doll, smiling brightly. Ophelia, innocent once, back when she was still a child herself. A shiver ran down Emma's spine, echoes of laughter and crying lingered in the air, crisscrossing as they called out to her. "You want them back," she murmured, understanding more than she wanted to. The altar was a tribute, a testament to Ophelia's hunger, a dark cycle of loss passed on like a cursed heirloom. Every deeply buried instinct screamed at her to flee, to shield her children from this nightmare. But Jake's voice pulled her deeper, like a siren call. Was it truly a plea for help? Or the bait in a trap laid by the very entity seeking to consume them? Emma, the whispering voices rose above the tempest, wrapping around her neck. "What will you give us? What would you sacrifice for the ones you love?" A chilling dread coursed through her. Was there something she had forgotten? Something she needed to remember to break the cycle? She faced the altar with defiance. "What are the rules?" She cried into the void, demanding the truth like a warrior summoning their courage before battle. In that moment, the shadows deepened, swirling into shapes that resembled long-lost faces, relatives she knew, their forms twisted, mouths morphing into expressions of regret and betrayal. "Bring them home," they echoed, as if fused into one haunted voice. "But you must pay the price." Emma felt her stomach twist into knots. "What do you want from me?" The desperation was palpable. "What must I do?" "You will remember," the voice resonated, firm and unyielding. "Everything. The burden and the pain. Only then will you be strong enough to sever the bond." The shadows encroached, twisting and hissing like a live thing, relentless in their pursuit. Emma pressed her hands to her temples, bracing against the swell of memories trying to burst forth. Fragments slipped through the cracks of her mind: a stormy night, a lost child, whispered promises forever broken. Barely standing, she gasped. "No, I can't." But the weight of the house, of Ophelia's curse pressed down, suffocating every ounce of resolve. "Sacrifice is the only way," came the echo. "One for one. Save them, and lose all." The temptation hung heavy in the air. Could she trade a piece of herself, of her past, to save her children? What kind of mother would she be if she didn't even try? Panic surged. All she wanted was to wake up from this nightmare, to scoop her children into her arms and run. But to break Ophelia's hold, she had to face the darkest parts of herself. As the shadows surged forward, entangling her in their grasp, Emma screamed. "I'll do it. I'll remember." The moment the words left her mouth, everything erupted into chaos. The world spun, memories flooding back like a jolt of electricity, sharp and bitter, but as each memory pushed through, a question lingered in the depth of her heart: what else would she lose to free her children? The darkness dissipated, revealing a haunting truth. But its discovery was only the beginning. What memory would she unlock first? And would it grant her the power to save her children, or would it seal their fate forever? The air thickened around her as memories surged, suffocating yet electrifying. Images flashed in rapid succession: a birthday party, the sound of laughter, a childhood full of warmth that felt foreign now, like a faded postcard from a happier life. The sweetness was tainted, shadows lurking just beyond the edges, like a whispered threat in her ear. Emma found herself back in the house they once called home. The familiar creak of the wooden floors echoed like dripping water, a relentless reminder of time lost. She gripped the walls as if they could anchor her to reality, her heart pounding against her ribcage. "Mommy." Jake's voice floated through the air again, fragile like glass, sharp with desperation. "Help me. I need you." The urgency snapped her back. She had to find him, had to pull him from the depths of despair. But at what cost? As she stumbled forward, the shadows coiled tighter around her. Flashes of her childhood erupted: a shattered window, a scream that echoed through the hallways, echoes drowning out the laughter. Her mother's face twisted in fear, the same expression she had seen on her own reflection since learning of Ophelia's curse. "Snap out of it," she whispered to herself, trying to wrestle control from the chaos. But the memories consumed her as dread seeped into her bones. Suddenly, she stood before a cracked mirror, shards reflecting a world no longer hers. A figure loomed behind her, a pale silhouette with hollow eyes. Emma's breath caught in her throat. It was Ophelia, the girl from the photo, but twisted, transformed into something otherworldly and menacing. "Remember," Ophelia whispered, her voice honeyed yet chilling. "Remember how easy it was to lose everything without warning." Images crashed together. A storm raged outside, wind howling like a beast. Emma's heart raced as she relived the night her brother had vanished, dragged into the stormy darkness. She had stood frozen, paralyzed by fear, unable to save him. "I should have saved you." The words slipped from her lips like a prayer, a confession laced with guilt. Ophelia's eyes gleamed, glinting like shards of glass. "To remember is to unlock the door. But every door has its price." The darkness around Emma writhed and twisted, gaping like a mouth ready to swallow her whole. She fell to her knees, hands clutching the ground as whispers flitted around her. "What will you give?" they taunted, weaving like smoke through the air. In the depths of her soul, a shadow of hope flickered. "Jake!" she screamed defiantly, almost as if willing the darkness to relent. "I'll do anything." "Anything," Ophelia echoed, leaning closer, her breath cold against Emma's cheek. "Then embrace your past. A child for a child." The choice hung heavily like a storm cloud, oppressive and threatening. Memories danced before her eyes, a montage of love and loss. She could feel the weight of every decision, every moment spiraling toward a reckoning. "In exchange for Jake, what remains of you?" the shadows hissed. Tears streamed down Emma's face. She had already lost so much, what could one more price be? The voices rapped tighter, pulling at her sanity. The path ahead blurred, uncertainty strangling her throat. "I will save him," she gasped, "and I will remember everything." As she spoke the final word, the darkness surged, crashing against her like a tidal wave. She could feel fragments of herself ripping away, memories both bitter and sweet, a cruel trade-off. But would it be enough? And as the shadows pulled her deeper into their clutch, a chilling question emerged: what would she become after everything was gone? In that moment, the echo of Jake's voice rang louder, both a cry and a plea. It was all she had left. But how far would she go to reclaim him? The darkness enveloped Emma, tendrils of shadow snaking into her mind, pulling memories free like loose threads from a fraying fabric. She gasped as the pain of those memories surged, a collision of light and dark. She could see Jake again, his laughter bright, a beacon of innocence amidst the chaos. But then, like static breaking a signal, that joy fractured. The last image drifted away, dragging her into the swirling abyss. "Let go of your past, or it will consume you." Ophelia's voice floated around her, sweet and cruel, an echo against the walls of her mind. "I can't let go. I want tea." Emma shouted, the words escaping in a frantic rush. Each syllable shattered against the oppressive weight of the void. The shadows twisted, echoing her defiance with a chorus of their own, mocking her resolve. A new memory surfaced, the night her brother had vanished, vivid yet clouded by grief. The house had trembled, the wind screaming as if it too had been alive with despair. They had chased after him, but the storm had swallowed him whole. Their family had never been the same since. A splinter in the foundation, a crack in their reality. "What will you give for him?" Ophelia's figure flickered, her form distorting as she danced on the edges of Emma's consciousness. "Everything. Nothing. You've already lost so much." Every pulse of darkness felt like icy fingers gripping Emma's throat, squeezing tighter with each anxious breath. If she couldn't reclaim Jake, what would it matter? She had lived a half-life, shackled to sorrow, always fearing the worst. Then, as if seeing through a storm-laden sky, a sliver of light broke through the gathering gloom. A promise, a fleeting vision. He is still out there, she breathed, hope battling despair. I can find him. I must. Suddenly, she was hurled back through memories, each one striking with painful familiarity. The laughter of children, now a distant melody drowned by silence. Her parentess' fear, palpable and real. The shadows whispered insidiously, their voices intertwining with the ghostly echoes of her past. Choose, Emma, they hissed, their breath hot against her skin. Choose to save him, to save yourself. What is your sacrifice? A tremor of panic rippled through her, the sharpness of reality cutting through the haze. What if she did not recognize the price? What if she lost herself completely, an empty husk trading everything for the ghost of a child who may never return? Just tell me what to do. The words burst from her, a ragged plea. There was desperation in her voice, a threadbare rope thrown into an unforgiving sea. Embrace your fears, Ophelia coaxed, her form shifting into an amalgamation of familiarity and horror. Feel them wrap around you like a cloak. You are stronger than you know, but truth hides below the surface. The shadows swirled, a tempest of dark desperation leaving Emma gasping. The air crackled with energy, each breath sharp and electric. Her heart raced as the walls around her dripped with darkness, all the memories writhing to the surface as if her very essence were being drawn out. Then, in a guttural whisper, the shadows pressed in further. Will you sacrifice the innocence in your heart to save your brother? Or let the past drown you both? The weight of her decision bore down on her like a funeral shroud, heavy and suffocating. What would happen if she lost herself? What would she unleash from the pit of her soul? As the shadows tightened, hanging on to her very last shred of hope, Emma felt the impending darkness pulse with life. She could almost hear Jake's laughter now, distant but real, a thread pulling her toward salvation. Would she take the leap? And if she chose to dive deep, what damning secrets lurked in the depths? Emma clenched her jaw, the resolve hardening like steel. Whatever lay ahead, she had to know. With a final deep breath, she shouted into the fray, I will face whatever it takes to save him. The shadows recoiled, writhing in sudden fear. But in their retreat, a new clarity emerged, a path she couldn't recognize forming beneath her feet. Yet threaded through the promise of hope was a chilling whisper that crawled up her spine, sending a shiver of dread through her bones. Are you sure you're prepared for what lies ahead? And as the darkness began to reshape around her, Emma realized she had only begun to understand the depth of her sacrifice. What darkness would she truly unveil? As the shadows shifted, the world around Emma pulsated like a living, breathing thing. It felt both close and distant, as if reality were a fragile veil that might tear at any moment. Every breath burned in her lungs, the air thick with anticipation and dread. Would she face whatever horrors lay beneath the darkness? The unanswered question gnawed at her mind. Follow the light. Ophelia's voice echoed, now softer, almost nurturing. It wrapped around Emma like poison-laced satin ribbons. But there was no light, only the all-consuming dark. Then, an inexplicable tug at her chest pulled her forward. She stepped onto the path, its surface warm yet unsettlingly slick beneath her feet. The shadows whispered fiercely in her ears, a cacophony of secrets longing to make themselves known. An insistent tremor coursed through her limbs, she fought against the paralysis creeping in, summoning the courage she had birthed in that last moment of defiance. Panic surged as she stumbled through the pitch black, her heart hammering with every movement. She was no longer just reclaiming memories of Jake, but wading into a chaotic tempest, a desperate swim against currents that threatened to drag her under. In those haunting memories, she saw fleeting glimpses of her family, shrouded in despair, shadows flickering across their faces like candles in the wind. Embrace the fear, Ophelia cooed again, her voice sown with a strange seduction. You're closer than you think. Each step echoed with the chilling reminder of all she had lost. She remembered her parents' silence after Jake went missing, the fragile tension in their home that snapped like a dry twig at a whisper. The home that turned from a sanctuary into a wretched prison of grief. But embedded deep within each painful memory was a glimmer of hope, an unshakable resolve sparked by love, then the ground shifted, yanking her out of her thoughts. She stumbled, eyes widening. The dark morphed again, coalescing into something far more sinister. Shapes elongated and writhing like worms in decay. Shadows became faces twisted in tragedy, each contour forever etched in her mind. "Let us out!" they shrieked, voices blending into a haunting harmony of torment. Emma clutched her head as waves of anguish lashed against the fortress of her sanity. The shadows of her past clawed at her, desperate to reclaim her, to align with their desolation. "No!" she screamed, flailing against the churning darkness. "You're not real." But the shadows thickened, surrounding her, drowning her in despair. "Reality is what you believe," they chanted. "Come join us. Your family is lost. Alone. They need you." Emma squeezed her eyes shut, tears streaming down her cheeks. She couldn't let them pull her into that anguished reality. Inspiration surged amid her tears, a gentle flame igniting in her core. "I have to find Jake," she shouted, a declaration that felt like a lifeline thrown into stormy seas. Out of the suffocating dark, a spark ignited, illuminating a path ahead. It was narrow and uneven, twisting and tangled like roots clawing from the earth. She felt the shadows' grip weaken, their sinister chorus fading to despairing murmurs. "Why are you fighting?" Ophelia's voice dripped with contempt. "You can't change what's already happened." Ignoring the temptation lacing Ophelia's words, Emma trudged onward, a steely determination etched across her features. Jake's laughter echoed again, an ethereal sound that filled her with a dread she couldn't articulate, yet somehow pushed her forward. Each step felt like wading deeper into this murky sea of memories. But now, amidst the chaos, she truly believed that somewhere in the inconceivable depths of this nightmare, Jake was waiting for her. "Emma!" A soft voice called, almost drowned by the shadows. "Help me!" The plea clawed through the darkness, a beacon lighting the path home. "Jake!" she cried, lunging toward the source as adrenaline coursed through her veins. Bursting into a clearing, she faced Ophelia again, the laughter now twisted, echoing in mockery. "Do you really think you can save him?" she sneered, the shadow swirling menacingly. Emma froze, breath hitching as darkness coiled around her. What did that laughter hide? "Don't pay attention to its lies," she whispered to herself, heart racing. What if it was true? "Are you ready?" Ophelia's grin widened as the shadows thickened, coiling tighter around Emma's limbs. Perhaps unknown truths lurked nearby, terrifying truths. She could feel them beckoning, threading through the fabric of her fate. But with every passing moment, the darkness only deepened. Emma had no idea what she was about to unleash. Would she survive the choice ahead? Or would the haunting claim her completely? The air crackled with tension surrounding Emma, and the oppressive darkness felt alive, pressing against her skin like 1,000 icy fingers. She could barely breathe as shadows danced around her, their whispers spiraling into chaos. Ophelia's laughter echoed in her mind, a jarring melody that clawed at her sanity. "What kind of choice do you think you have here?" Emma's pulse quickened. She had to break free. Desperation surged, fighting against the anxious doubt creeping in. "I have to believe. I have to find Jake," she chanted like a mantra, silently seeking strength from the memories that flickered like fragile flames. A glimmer of movement caught her eye. Shadows twisted and parted, revealing an unsettling swirl of raw crimson light. Emma blinked rapidly, heart racing. Was that a doorway? Hope flickered at the edges of her despair. She couldn't hesitate, this could be a chance to escape the grip of this hell. With each shaky step, she moved toward it, the warmth pulsing with a soft throbbing that resonated in her chest. But just as she dared to stretch out a hand, Ophelia surged forward, the darkness coiling fiercely around her. "You think they want you? They're only bait for the trap. Stop." Emma's cry was bold, fear fueling her determination. She shoved past Ophelia's taunts, desperately focusing on the brightening light ahead. She stepped into it, feeling the electricity of hope wash over her, illuminating the chilling quiet that filled her mind. As she crossed the threshold, the seductive warmth coalesced into a blinding beam that pushed back the darkness. She squinted against the light, her feet skating over an unfamiliar surface that felt solid beneath her, but just as quick as the light appeared, it flickered, a weak candle flame fighting against an overwhelming storm. Familiar voices whispered behind her, seeping into her mind like a chilling fog. Each name was a reminder of her haunting past: Jake, her parents, the shadows of their grief clawing at her existence. "Emma, you shouldn't have come." The voice was soft yet stern, and she recognized it immediately. It was her mother. A chill ran down her spine. "Mom." Heart pounding, she turned, and for a moment, the scenery shifted. Ghostly images of her family hovered behind her like mist, faces warped by sorrow and longing. "Leave this place. It's not safe." Emma felt the ground tremble beneath her, shadows rising again, angry and accusatory. "You can't fight against what you are destined to become." They howled, her resolve cracked like ice beneath the pressure of their anguish-filled pleas. Would she condemn herself for the truth hidden in the depths? Torn, she glanced back toward the flickering light, a safe haven, or another deceptive snare. In a frenzied search for clarity, Emma stumbled between her mother's fading silhouette and the light reaching with tender fingers. "Don't do this. You'll regret it." The specters wove with a haunting urgency, their blended voices crackling like dried leaves, but all she could feel was the truth vibrating within her: the need to save Jake, to fight against the encroaching darkness, to reclaim not only him but also herself. "I will free him," she shouted, her voice rising above the swirling chaos. The shadows recoiled in her determination, screeching in anger, a cacophony of despair and disbelief. Embracing her fear, Emma hurled herself back toward the light, fists clenched, ready to confront what came next. But just as she felt the warmth envelop her, a laugh erupted from behind, dark, wicked, a crescendo of madness. "You think running toward the light will save you? You're already damned." Ophelia shrieked, a banshee echo reflecting off walls that now looked to warp and shift, and then the light blinked out completely, plunging her back into the depths of shadows so thick she could hardly see. Dread clutched at her heart, and she stood alone once more, surrounded by the hollow echoes of lost souls. "Emma," a voice broke through the void, thin and ghostly. It was Jake again, softer now, a teasing whisper that caressed her resolve. "Help me." But the shadows twisted, their claws digging deeper, promising to consume her. Would she listen to the haunting plea of her brother, risking everything to uncover the truth? Or would she succumb to the dread threatening to pull her into eternal darkness? Emma took a deep breath, summoning her fading courage, and plunged back into the endless night, ready to face the shadows holding Jake captive. The question lingered, piercing every inch of her heart: how much darkness could she overcome before she and Jake became one with the shadows forever? Emma stumbled further into the thick veil of darkness, each step sinking deeper into a suffocating silence that felt as heavy as stone. The remnants of light, once a beacon of hope, faded to a distant memory, leaving only the shadow's chilling embrace. Dread twisted in her gut, a survival instinct gnawing at her resolve. "Emma," the invasive whisper of Jake's voice echoed around her, weaving through the stifling blackness like smoke. "You have to find me." She squeezed her eyes shut, trying to will his presence closer. But the shadows obscured everything: no walls, no ground. Just endless void. And yet, she felt the chilling pull of familiarity. The sound was laced with danger, an undertow of despair that pulled at her sanity. It had to be a trick, a part of the darkness wanting to ensnare her into hopelessness. "Jake!" she called out, her voice trembling, swallowed by the yawning abyss. Fear clawed at her throat as silence answered, thick and absolute. Then there was movement, a whisper of fabric trailing by, just beyond her reach. Was that him? She turned, heart racing, but only shadows twisted around her, twisting taunts that laughed at her desperation. "Come play with us, Emma," they sang, their voices a discordant melody that made her skin crawl. "You'll be much happier here." "Stop!" she shouted, fists clenching with defiance. She had to keep moving. Jake needed her, and she wouldn't abandon him to whatever torment lurked in this nightmare. With each cautious step, she began to feel the echo of his anguish in her bones, a pulse of fear mixing with her own terror. Help! The voice seeped in again, but this time it altered, a hint of pain wrapped around it. You need to hurry. The sense of urgency pierced her heart. She forced herself forward, stumbling until she felt something cold and damp under her fingers, a crack in the ground. She knelt, feeling a rough stone surface, cool against her palms. Desperate, she inched forward, trying to sense where the echoes of Jake's voice were flowing from. Emma, the whisper felt closer, clearer. She called out again, I'm here. Her breath came rapid, a mix of dread and hope. Redirecting her focus, she centered on the sound, pushing through the feeling of hopelessness that clawed at her insides. A sudden surge of energy shot through her, as if the veil of shadows shared her hunger for something more: life, connection. A flicker of light danced at the edge of her vision, bright and beckoning. This time, she believed she could reach it, that it would lead to Jake. But with that flicker came a sickening growl of anger from the shadows, an ominous grumble that vibrated through her bones. You can't escape. They howled, a frantic insistence that made her throat dry. You are ours. Emma felt the walls shudder around her, uncertainty brewing as the ground beneath her threatened to shift. Panic escalated in her chest, but she drove it back. She had come too far to turn back now. With one final surge of determination, she lunged toward the swirling light, her hands stretching out, burning with frantic urgency. It wasn't the safe haven she hoped for. It pulsed like a wild heart, wild and unpredictable. Suddenly, the shadows recoiled, forming a barrier, solid and terrifying. No! She cried, slamming her hand against the invisible wall, feeling an icy ache shooting back through her arm. They were fusing, twisting to mold something monstrous. Join us, Emma. Ophelia's voice dropped to a sultry whisper, still taunting, still alluring. You know there's no escape. But as Jake's voice faded, swallowed by the void, a thought sparked in her mind. If the darkness was controlling the path, maybe there was a way to seize it. Maybe she just had to confront the very thing she feared. In a moment of raging clarity, Emma stepped back, drawing in a shuddering breath. The shadows surged, sensing her hesitation. And as they lunged forward, she screamed, No! I will not be yours. But as her determined shout echoed, the ground trembled violently beneath her, and she faced an overwhelming darkness that masked her truth. The question loomed larger than ever, as the void expanded around her. What if the only way to save Jake was to dive deeper into the darkness, to confront the horrors bound by blood? What if the shadows weren't just enemies but a twisted part of herself? With the ground shifting and the walls closing in, one terrifying thought remained: would she lose everything, including herself, in the process? The darkness swirled around Emma, tightening its grip as she steeled herself. She felt the weight of every breath, every heartbeat echoing through the void as the shadows whispered promises of despair and loss. She could almost hear Jake's voice beneath the madness, pleading, yearning like a lifeline tethered to hope. I'm coming, Jake. She shouted defiantly, reversing the tide of fear that threatened to drown her. With each step, she pushed deeper into the twilight realm, fueled by determination and the love illuminating the way. The echoes of her past flared with intensity, discordant memories colliding in a whirlpool of confusion, desperation mixing with resolve. I reclaim my strength. She yelled, the declaration reverberating against the shadowy walls. Ophelia's form materialized, shifting through the darkness, her eyes glassy and foreboding. You can't fight what's been written in the fog of fate, she sneered, darkness rolling off her like fabric, threatening to ensnare once again. Your family is bound to me. No. Emma's voice cracked, but this time it was laced with determination. I will not lose him like I lost everything else. With renewed vigor, she honed in on Jake's voice, drowning out the chaos, letting it guide her like a whispering flame. The shadows recoiled slightly as if sensing her resolve. You think your courage can save him? Ophelia taunted, a hint of uncertainty creeping into her voice. Emma took a steadying breath and fought against the sorrow clawing at her heart. My love is stronger than your darkness. As the words flew from her lips, a surge of warmth enveloped her, igniting a flicker of light at her core. The shadows hissed, their hold on her weakening, the cacophony of voices shifting into a pained shriek. Summoning her remaining strength, she called out to Jake. Remember us. The love we shared, the laughter echoing through our home. Break free. The shadows trembled as she pushed through, shoving aside remnants of sorrow, fueling her light. Ophelia lurched, a flicker of uncertainty flashing in her hollow eyes. No. You cannot take him from me. She screeched, her form warping as she lunged forward, reaching for Emma with elongated claws. In a swift motion, Emma twisted away and directed all her energy into the blinding warmth enveloping her. I will break this curse. The words escaped her like an arrow, piercing the heavy shroud of despair weighing her down. For a heartbeat, time stood still. The ground trembled beneath Emma's feet, and suddenly, the shadows shrieked an anguished sound that rippled through her. She felt something fracture the chains that bound her family to Ophelia's dark legacy began to break. Light exploded from her heart, illuminating the darkness and surrounding her in a brilliant embrace. With newfound clarity, she focused on Jake, his voice barely above a whisper but filled with a desperate hope. Emma. Mom. Jake. She cried, the glow surrounding her morphing into an ethereal pathway, guiding her toward the source of his plea. I'm coming. She darted through the blazing light, the shadows faltering, swirling like smoke. Each step was painstaking, but every inch forward felt victorious. Clarity sharpened her sight. Through the haze, she began to recognize her son grasping at something invisible, his face contorted with fear, and behind him loomed a dusky figure of Ophelia, her grasp threatened by the radiance Emma unleashed. No more. Emma burst forth, arms outstretched, and as she surged forward, the warmth enveloped her children, washing away the shadows that clung to them. In an electrifying moment, the light collided with the shadows, creating a thunderous eruption. This ends now. Emma shouted as the brilliance flared, cleansed with love and resolve. For an instant, the world crackled with energy. The shadows recoiled, their wails twisting into a chorus of agony and disbelief. In that defining moment, Emma felt the presence of her late husband, his steadfast love lifting the heavy burden she carried. With her heart a beacon, the darkness shattered around her, swirling into a whirlwind of fragmented memories that spiraled away like leaves on the wind. She reached for Jake and Lily, wrapping her arms around them, feeling their warmth against her skin, their presence grounding her amidst the chaos. Mommy. Their voices rang in harmony, the despair melting away as the shadows lost their grip, retreating like a tide dragged away from the shore. Ophelia's furious howl echoed, unraveling in disdain as the light engulfed her, strands of darkness unraveling like frayed fabric. You can't escape your past. She screamed, voice barren and hollow as she disintegrated into nothingness. No. Emma shouted, feeling the power of closure. I am not defined by my past. The storm broke, revealing the sky, light flooding the room, bright and welcoming. The chaos dissolved into stillness, the shadows vanished, the weight of despair lifted. Emma stood, breathless but strong, with Jake and Lily cradled in her arms. She felt a bittersweet sense of relief. The darkness was gone, but not without scars. They won today, but she understood the journey of healing lay ahead. Let us go home, she whispered, guiding her children toward the exit with renewed hope shimmering in her heart. As they stepped into the light, the distant memories echoed softly, a bittersweet reminder of the battle fought. The weight of love soothed her spirit, free at last from Ophelia's haunting grasp. The world felt safe once more, warm and inviting, but Emma couldn't shake the sense of responsibility for shaping the narrative of their lives, for gathering the pieces, letting go, and embracing the journey ahead. As they walked away, hand in hand, Emma was filled with determination. No more shadows would claim her family. She would weave new memories, stitching together their future, one thread at a time, shaping the tapestry of love that connected them all. Now is the time for you to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Every thumb matters. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about this ending. And hurry, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to support the channel. This is the moment to act. Don't wait even one more second. Let your voice be heard.